Boy, don't I feel silly. I've been talking to you guys for about a minute and a half and didn't realize I never hit that go live button.
It's a shame you're so good.
I was on it, wasn't I? And I can't do the same thing twice. I am Tommy and you're on the Love Boat. Psalm, good to see you. Susie, what's happening? Jane Aldrich is here. Psalm, good to see you. Kristen Melinda, there's KM. Sandy Wandy, Cindy G. Honey is here. And from Mass, Barbara Waite. We got the whole gang. David Booley, good to see you, man. Brock Bandy is an absolute legend. I did say that in the previous one. None of you heard it. But Brock Bandy has been really working for the boat. Caroline in Canada, I want to tell you something. I am absolutely honored that your significant other joined us yesterday. I'm not joking you. That really meant something. Murph, it's you. Good to see you, my man. And look at all of these good folks. You're not going to believe this. Watch him now. You're not going to believe this, but I'm not going to offend anybody today. Let me repeat that. Jeremy, good to see you. I'm not going to offend anybody today. And I'll tell you why. Because there is no chance on God's green earth that anything that I say today, anybody can take any kind of stance to find that I'm being anything other than just telling the news. The Bee Lady, how are ya? Jeremy Fowler. Susie's here. So I don't know if you guys have looked, but Portland, Oregon is, well, it's not a fun place to be, is it? Unless, of course, you happen to be a member of Trans Tifa. Sorry, man, but I have spent so much time watching what's happening in Portland today. There's a part of me that would like to have that time back. If you look at the protesters in Portland, let us just say that they line up on one side in a really big way, right? Nobody up there is anything but liberal, wildly liberal. Now, I will chalk this up to most of them are the lunatic fringe. I know you're out there. These are literally the lunatic fringe. However, the problem becomes this. I would like some critical thinking to go on. And I'll give you some examples of critical thinking so that this makes sense to you. I watched a video today that said, and this was, by the way, somebody who is an elected official who said, Donald Trump is racist and I can prove it. 80% of people that he is deporting are brown. I got news for the rocket scientists out there that listen to this and believe it. Critical thinking goes like this. What percentage of the planet do you think might not be white? Right? Because if we can establish that, maybe we can get a baseline. And if I told you, right, that about 86 to 88%, depending on which research you do, those people are not white. So just based on the numbers, that would obviously make sense. However, if we take it a step further in critical thinking, the border that we share, our southern border, anybody coming across that probably isn't going to be white Anglo-Saxon because, well, there's nobody south of the border in any of those countries that aren't Hispanic. And I don't mean that there aren't any. I just mean that it is a predominantly Hispanic part of the world and a great part of the world. I absolutely love South America. I've never been happier in my life, and I mean that. Arwa, good to see you. Whoa, Trump sent troops or something to Portland. Yes, he absolutely did. And isn't he a piece of crap for that? I'll tell you something funny. You have to use AI to some degree in order to do research. It's impossible not to. And I asked a question of AI and it deleted the question instantly. Didn't have any curses in it. But I was asking the AI model why it is, because when I asked about what was happening in Portland, it took a stance that said the government is sending the military and there's something very seriously wrong with that. And I sort of argued that point a little bit or asked for refinement. I'm not arguing with a computer, but I'm asking it to refine this because you have to get by the biases that are put in place by the people that programmed it. Those exist. If you don't believe that, you're an ignoramus. I'm sorry. So I said, man, maybe you can explain this. And every comment that I'm asking, every question I'm asking is being deleted because it screws with their policy. So I said, earmuffs, if you've got kids there. I said, what's the deal with these dirty sons of bitch Republicans who are sending military into Portland? Prints out, nothing gets deleted. That's a problem, right? You guys see this? That's a problem. But back to critical thinking. It's logical then that 80% of people that are going to be deported are going to not be of white skin color. That does not make someone a racist by definition. And that kind of nonlinear thinking, I'll tell you a joke. There's a joke about a scientist that is doing an experiment on frogs, and he cuts a leg off of the frog, and they try to get the frog to jump, and it jumps with 3 legs, then it jumps with 2 legs, then it jumps with 1 leg. And when they cut off the last leg, the frog can't jump. Now, what is your conclusion on why that doesn't happen? Well, because if you cut off all 4 legs of a frog, it becomes death. Logical, right? Well, it's that same kind of logic that people apply to some of the questions that come up. You're being lied to on a daily basis. There are politicians that say we have a rapist, a convicted rapist in the White House. There's no truth to that at all. I don't like the guy, but truth is truth, right? Lies are lies. The people in Portland, Oregon are very liberal. The people that are protesting are very liberal. And I watched, I'm not joking, I probably watched, and I don't mean sound bites. I watched people that went in there and interviewed people on both sides. And you can't interview, loving failure, I'm glad you're here. You can't interview people who are wearing the black balaclavas. And you know what? Why wouldn't you wear a balaclava if you're not doing anything wrong, right? You know what that is? That's just a little, all you can see is the eyes. It's like a ninja hood, right? That's probably the best way to describe it if you don't know what a balaclava is. But they're all wearing them. Those people chase the press out. Unless the press has blue hair, 250 pounds with a beard and a dress and pumps. Oh boy. No, I'm not apologizing for this. Look at who these people are. Right? Oh, funniest thing, the funniest part of this entire thing is there were 3 attacks today on people who just think that America probably shouldn't devolve into a kind of a place that looks like Beirut did in the worst of times, right? Or Da Nang while bombs were being lobbed into it. It's fascinating to me, though, because when these attacks happened, the guys are going like this. I mean, I'm not joking. Nobody got hurt. Well, I'll give you an example. Katie and Squirrel fight so much with so much more anger than these people did. I said to my brother, I would like to be there, right? These are not people that, there's no testosterone flowing around this crowd. And that shouldn't come as a shock to too many people. Arya, glad that you're here. I really am. There isn't an argument for why the military should not be sent into Portland. And here's why I will explain this to you. And you can tell me happily if you disagree with me, and I'm not going to shout at you. I'm going to shout at Johnny because he's in the room. I'm kidding. Honestly, I got no reason to try to, this is just pure logic. Okay. Let's talk about what's happening in Portland, Oregon, because the press probably isn't giving you a whole lot on it. You're going to have to do a lot more research if you want to see what's happening. But they have been occupying, remember this one? Occupy. They are occupying the area directly in front of the ICE facility, which is a government facility to deport people who come across the border illegally. I get a little salty when people break laws and they say that law is okay to break, because I did. If I lived to 100, I spent about 13 to 14% of my life incarcerated because I broke the law and I was held to the standards that law was written to. And that got me sent to prison. And I'm not unhappy about that. I really am not. I broke the law, I went to prison. That's how it works. But if the law that you broke is coming into the United States illegally, there's a large chunk of the United States of America that says, no, we're cool with that. So let me explain to you a couple of things. Number one, that carries 5 years in prison. It's a felony. But number two, recently, we have become a very humane society. And we've decided that if a person shows up at the border carrying a 3-year-old, we're going to do a DNA test on both of them to make sure that that's actually their child. Because you see, the odds are much greater that they're going to let you in if you're carrying a child. But what we have found is that most of those children don't belong to the men or women carrying them. Let's put this one to J.D. DeLay was in Portland on the right side of the issue, by the way. Love J.D. DeLay. Love J.D. DeLay. Let's put this to the logical test. What do you think happens to these people who enter the United States with a child that isn't theirs? Do you think that kid maybe gets put into daycare, maybe a kindergarten, and we get them to first grade? When you hear the statistics about 300 kids being put into the sex trade as children, that's what we're talking about. So if we use critical thinking, is it kinder for an administration to say, swing by the border? So it's a free for all at the border. We're letting everybody in. And then caravans of 30,000 people start to move their way north. Is that humane? Or would it be humane to shut down the border? Because we have caused more kids to get raped with those policies. The things that happen to the women on the way here is absolutely horrific. And you know what? Who are they going to call? You understand why these things happen, right? Because they have no recourse. They can't call the police. They're being smuggled by cartels. So the people who are smuggling those cartels up, thank you, David. The people who are smuggling those cartels, those people up, they don't care what they do to these people, right? It's just they look around and go, wow, that girl's hot. Shocker, right? These are people that poison folks for a living. And is it their right? Is their free will that allows them to do drugs? Absolutely. Absolutely. But when heroin was $300 a gram, we had a smaller problem than when it got down to $35 a gram, right? That's pretty much basic economics. Can we all agree on that? Okay, so what's going on in Portland, one of the most drugged out cities in the United States of America, I promise you, is when they said, this is a sanctuary city, we're not going to prosecute anybody that comes here from another country. What do you think happens to sanctuary cities? If you were coming across, like, I'll give you a perfect example. We are in Ecuador. We're here legally. We're going through the immigration process, which is how you emigrate to a country. If, however, they didn't do that, but they said Quito is never going to prosecute somebody who comes here illegally, where do you think we'd go? We'd go to Quito, right? And the problem is, we would be lawbreakers on our way to Quito because we're trying to avoid, getting arrested. So we're breaking the law. And when you get armies of lawbreakers into one city, you get Portland. And I'm not just talking about the people that are going there. I'm talking about all of the people who bought into the BS, right? Odd, heroin, etc., is going down in cost and food is going up. Isn't that something? Personally, with all these cities collapsing in the country, Detroit isn't even mentioned anymore. Isn't that odd? Well, I'll tell you why. Would you like to know why Detroit isn't mentioned anymore? Because they came up with some radical ideas to change that city. And it was a centrist. The guy may call himself a Democrat, but he most assuredly is not by their standards. But he got there and said things like this. There are entire city blocks of buildings that have been abandoned. So how about if we do this? We'll give you land. You can have it, but you got to fix it. So people started coming into that city and doing things to bring the city back to life. Kid Rock has played a fairly big part. He employs a lot of people now, and businesses are being given incredible incentives, right? Well, Arya, I'll tell you what, send me an email and I will literally send you the program that you can look into, because this is absolutely a fact. I did a show on this. I researched the dog crap out of that. And there were videos of the people that went in and were given, if not literally outright given, these were properties that at one time were fantastic. And they pay, when I say pennies on the dollar, I literally mean pennies on the dollar. You know, it's very small amounts of money because they're trying new things. Here's what I will tell you. Look at cities that have been under Democrat rule for a really long period of time. And let's see how they're doing, right? When was the last time there was Chicago was under Republican control? How's Chicago look? Huh? How about San Francisco? How about almost all of California at this point? But Portland, Oregon is the absolute best example of what happens when you let people make up their minds for whatever is right. Because in any other place on planet Earth, when they begin to occupy right in front of a federal building, Chicago Mayor fumes as feds swoop in on Venezuelan gang members in his city. Because why would you want someone swooping in on Venezuelan? Anyway, what happens in Oregon in Portland, Oregon is a fascinating example. Now you go, well, you know, it's hard for the politicians, especially when the governor and the mayor are marching with these people. The reason that the feds hadn't come in yet is because you're supposed to ask them. The reason they're angry is because Donald Trump said, we're going to go in there, whether you want that or not, right? Why would he do that, right? That's fascist. No, because there are people hiding in their homes afraid to go outside, right? They're terrified of this. Do you know the last arrest made by the Portland Police Department on this Occupy movement was June 14th? Wrap your dome around that. They go out every night, they get shafazed, they set stuff on fire, right? They have big bonfires and they terrorize people that don't have blue hair or who aren't wearing pumps with a beard, right? If I went there with a dress, they would welcome me with open arms. If I went there with a camera, right, and started filming in a dress, they would welcome me with open arms. If you think I'm lying, go and watch it. Yeah, it's TommyScoble@gmail.com. Send me an email. The area around the Fox Theater and Joe Louis Arena were revitalized, but most of Detroit is still pretty sketchy. Absolutely it is, and it's going to take a very long time to heal. And the reason is the automobile companies and the companies that serviced automobile companies all went out of business, right? At one time, these were the biggest businesses and the biggest factories in the entire world. But then we decided it would be a really good idea to let cheap labor in China make our stuff. And now we're using tariffs to try to force equity, right? And it's a real sticking point for people on the left because they would rather make sure that they can get their products really cheap than find ourselves in another situation like COVID-19, only to find out that essential things that we need to treat people are all made in China. What could possibly go wrong, right? What could possibly go wrong? If antibiotics are all made by your enemy, and people love to send me emails and go, they're not our enemy. You're an ignoramus. If you do not believe that China is our enemy, then you just are not paying attention to anything that is going on. I'm sorry, you're not. And I'll tell you, I'm scared beyond belief for the United States of America. I really am. And this isn't going to make anybody happy, especially the right-wingers. But, hey, Roberta, good to see you. This is something that scares me. Denisha, I'm glad you're here. This is terrifying to me because right now, if you are in, let's say you were in office in the United States of America, right? Pop quiz. Your country is $39 trillion in debt. Within 2 years, maybe 3, you're not going to be able to do anything with the money that you bring in except pay the interest on the money that you borrowed. There will be no money left over for anything other than paying the interest on the money that you have borrowed. You're a homeowner, right? Or you're a renter or you're whatever. You have to have a budget. If you do not have any money to do anything other than pay the debts on your credit cards, how are you going to live? Well, you can't. But we let the federal government do that. And that's been going on for a really long time. So add on to that the fact that we have hot spots all over the United States. We got big warships right off the coast of our continent down here, U.S. ships that are getting ready to fire on Venezuela. In fact, they fired on Venezuelan ships today, and they didn't even clear it with Marco Rubio. They just did it without his clearance. We are in times where everything is escalating. I talked yesterday about how Donald Trump had a meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, and they talked about a plan to get peace in Israel. Not for nothing, folks, but this peace plan doesn't seem to give a whole lot to, hey, Fish, this doesn't give a whole lot to the Palestinians. It certainly leans really heavily on giving stuff to Israel. They want back their hostages. They want back, dead or alive, they want all the hostages back. They also want them to dismantle their military. They're never going to agree to that. It's never going to happen. So, and Donald Trump said that here, this is how many days we're going to give you. And then we're going to go in and wipe out Hamas. The people that march up and down the streets in the United States of America protesting about free Palestine. Please let me remind you of something. Little critical friggin' thinking. How did this big one start? Well, it started with men on paragliders, right? Flying in with automatic weapons. I did a show on this. This is not conjecture. This is fact. Hopped up to the nines on a drug very similar to our disoxin, except these people were shooting it. If you don't know what disoxin is, it's the top of the food chain in pharmaceutical amphetamines. It is a rugged speed. I've done a decent amount of it in my life, and it will keep you up for a very long time. Well, they were hopped up to the nines on this, and they went in and killed women and children and took hostages. That's, what is it? What do we call that? In America, we call that peaceful protesting if you're on the left. I'm not being an ass. The George Floyd situation, we lived through that, all of us, right? Well, you literally watched people bow in the streets to people of other colors. Skin color should never do that. Nobody ever bows to anybody. My knee drops to one person, and he is no longer on this planet. I'll see him in a while. Right? Probably quicker than we all think. They have been fighting over there for my entire life. I don't see it ever changing. Well, you know something? Here's the problem. This makes actually a great point of discussion because we're getting there right now in the United States, only we're doing it in a civil situation, right? We're doing it in a civil situation. But what we're getting to is where half of the country hates the other half of the country. 3-year-old Palestinians are taught that the Jews are the worst people in the entire world, and we need to do everything we can to take back this land and kill them. If you train kids at 3 that those people are the freaking enemy, this is the conversation that we had yesterday, right?
Weaponized children.
It's the weaponization of children. Boko Haram does it, right? To kids as young as 12 years old, where they're putting guns in these kids' hands. Most of their army is under the age of 16. Well, we're in the United States now. Go look at what's happening with Trans-Tifa in Portland. The number of people standing out there who don't have blue hair, who aren't wearing a dress in spite of the fact that they have a beard, or wearing assless chaps. This is a lifestyle, right? And a movement. When they interview these people, they say, Portland is weird. We want to keep it that way. Well, I got news for you. The vast majority of people in Portland are pretty pissed off. This year, they're going to build a lot less apartments. 2025 is going to be the worst they've ever seen in terms of growth. No one was going to build an apartment complex there. You'd have to be an asshat. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to build an apartment complex somewhere where people don't want to live, right? That doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. We live in a world today where the United States is going to turn into the Arabs and the Jews. And the sad thing is, the lunatics, right, that are occupying Portland make this much of the left. They're the lunatic fringe. But the problem is we are so ideologically locked right now that they're going to support that because it's anti-Trump. Pay attention, because if you don't get this, I swear to God, you should grab a tack hammer and smack yourself in the forehead with it. If this doesn't make sense to you, there is something very seriously wrong with you. The purpose of government is to protect the people, right? To provide for the common defense, to promote general welfare, and to secure the blessings of liberty. If your city is too afraid to go outside and your mayor and your governor say, this is a peaceful protest, well, then something's got to give. Your job is to protect the citizens of this country. And the citizens of Portland are terrified. The freaks? No, they're not. They're not. I mean, if you're a trans individual, you can walk through an Antifa riot and no one's going to touch you. But this is an issue. And you know what? George Soros gave $80 million to these people, right? To these kind of organizations. He donates massive amounts of money. How did he get rich? Destabilizing currencies. You may not realize this. 5 countries, Vietnam was one. I'm struggling. I don't use notes for these things. 5 countries in the last 2 days have said they no longer want to use the dollar on the international market. When enough countries say that, then the dollar is going to no longer be the default currency. You know who else said it? One of the big things that just came out was Russia saying that we have been ripping off the entire world for a really long time by the use of the dollar. Back to my pop quiz. If you're running the country and you're $39 trillion in debt, Russia's as weak as they've ever been, right? Because we've been pounding them with our weaponry through some other country, what we call proxy wars, right? People put up with those all day long. That's right. Free these people because you're not getting body bags coming home. And we're getting better at doing warfare without bringing body bags home. And when you can just surgically go in there and kill people with drones, people don't even really get all that pissed off about it because we're not, as human beings, we're tribal. It's just part of who we are. And if you feel like your country is being threatened and you go out and you handle things or whatever, as long as body bags aren't coming home, they don't get a lot of pushback. And we're getting to the place where wars are going to be fought without body bags, right? We're going to let AI do a lot of this. We're going to let drones do it. We're going to let, little devices that shoot at people. This is terrifying because the most logical thing, if you were just an AI model and you didn't care about human beings, you'd say, how do you get out of that problem if you're the United States of America? And the answer would be World War III. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. If we go to World War III, China is going to be against us. That's a lock. So is Iran. So is North Korea. There are certain countries we don't have to worry about. Those are locks. They're going to be against us. Who do we owe our money to? China. The vast majority of the money that we owe is to China. So if we were to prevail in that war, we could eliminate all that debt. And even if we didn't win, we're such a large country that the odds that the United States of America survives that war is pretty damn good, at which point they can restructure their money. Thank you so much, David. That's a very kind thing to say. That really is. That's a kind thing to New form of Cold War. You know what, Jane? I wish it was cold. This to me feels like a very much hot war. The reason that the Cold War was the Cold War was 2 countries didn't talk to one another at all. And that obviously is a cold thing. But we ran on something that we called mutually assured destruction. Doesn't sound very healthy. But they weren't going to fire missiles at us because we would fire missiles back at them and we could both destroy each country. And that didn't seem like it was smart to either side. However, you also had the added benefit that communists don't believe in God. And when the people you're fighting don't believe in God, then they're less likely to want to die for them, right? It's not like the radical Islamists. They believe that you're going to get 72 virgins when you die and go to the other side. And I got news for you. I read that book and nowhere in there does that appear. Nowhere. I read it twice. I thought, I must have read that crap at like 2 a.m. How did I miss that? Because it's not in the Quran. It doesn't appear there. That's not how it works. Most religious texts, even if they do talk about things like killing infidels, they're not promising you virgins in the afterlife. No, somebody created that and people keep talking about it. And people said to me, I got emails. Someone said, you're talking bad about Islam and it's a very peaceful religion. I can't remember a lot of people that touched off suicide vests that were from a different religion. I don't know of any other religion that says you need to have 2 witnesses to a rape in order for it to be prosecuted. I don't know how many other religions have their own courts and laws. Oh, I was demonetized before I got started. We did fight by proxy all over the war. This is something all over the world. We've been doing this forever, right? So have the Russians. The superpowers all fight by proxy because they would rather do that than die. But without lies, Islam dies. You know what? That's a bold thing to say. And I don't mean that it's not right. I just mean that you can pick on Christianity all day long, because the tenets of the religion say turn the other cheek. The tenets of Islam say kill infidels. You know what an infidel is? Communists are infidels. Foreigners are infidels. Anyone that does not believe Allah is God is an infidel. Right? Christians for sure are infidels. And Christians currently are the most prosecuted religion on planet Earth. This is not a debate. You're not going to tell me that these statistics don't back that up. Hell, even AI has to admit it. I know it makes them sick, but they have to admit it.
Hillary Clinton, white men of a certain religion.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton said, if it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, that white men of a certain religion have done an awful lot of damage to this world. I'm not sure which religion she's talking about. She's a Christian, allegedly. I think she's Satan, personally. I really do. There's some really interesting stuff. We could talk about them for 4 shows, though. We call it a Cold War, right? I.e. Vietnam. Yeah, we were doing proxy wars with places like Vietnam or the Contras, because there used to be a theory that domino effect happens. And if a communist country were to take over Ecuador, then the next country will fall. And pretty soon you're going to have communism at your southern border. There are a lot of people really pissed at all of the things that are being done by. Let me rephrase that. There are people that are really unhappy that we're firing on boats in the Caribbean off the coast of South America. These are narco-terrorist states. I have been doing shows literally for years now. Heather Rhodes, good to see you. I have been doing shows for years now when I said the number 1 cause of death in the United States of America is drug overdose. And I said, dope dealers, when they kill someone, they cut back on the amount of dope in the pill or in the bag or in the powder, and then they add more cut because there's no vested interest in killing your customers. But the dope that comes across the border keeps getting stronger and keeps killing more people. It's the number 1 cause of death. It also happens to be the number 1 cause of death between 18 and 50. The age where if you had to take up arms, you'd want 18 to 50-year-olds. And obviously we don't draft people of that age. But if they hit your soil, you put a gun in everyone's hand that can shoot it, right? At the same time, we're killing all of those people off. The previous administration was letting in millions of people that we don't know, right? And what we said was, hey, here's a cell phone so that we can call you and tell you when your court date was. The number of those people that actually come back is remarkable. Is that true? Really true? Which one are we talking about? Ask me again, B-Lady. I say a lot of things and we have about a 30-second delay, right? The number 1 cause of death, if that's what you're talking about, the number 1 cause of death in the United States of America is drug overdose. That is the number 1 cause of death. And it has been for about 4 years running. What changed? Everybody just decided they wanted to do way more dope? No, heroin went away, right? If you're a junkie and you're getting heroin, you happen to be a very lucky person. However, more than likely, and I don't mean lucky as in heroin's great. I just mean it's a hell of a lot safer than fentanyl. But even the heroin is cut with fentanyl. Why? Because you don't have to grow it. Fentanyl is a substance that is made in a lab, right? Cutting back on the strength of drugs, that gray stuff is lethal. Yeah. I've known drug dealers my entire life, right? Up until about a decade ago. In fact, almost everybody I knew was a drug dealer or a drug user. And drug dealers, if they kill someone, they don't want to go to prison for killing someone. They continue to back down on the strength because it's not a good thing. You see, take opioids as an example. The average opioid user is going to have to take their drugs 2, maybe 3 times a day to keep from getting ill. So if you got 20 of them, you're making a really good living. If you got 100 of them, you're killing it. But if you kill 60 of them, right? If you're constantly killing the people that are paying for you, that's bad business. And I have said for years, this is an attack. China sending the drugs to the narco state below us. They smuggle it across the border. And the intent is not to make money, which obviously they make a ton of. But what they're trying to do is kill as many Americans as they can. This is an attack on America without guns. It's chemical warfare in the worst sense of the word, because the number of people that we lose from this scourge makes it so that we can't defend ourselves quite as well. It also is one of the things that is driving the low birth rates as well. If you have tons of people who are dying of drug overdoses between 18 and 50, those are ages that people can actually give birth, right? And I don't mean the women, but predominantly way more men die than women in this. So this is a frightening equation. And I've been talking about it for 2 years. And now the president of the United States said, we're under attack from drugs. So if there's a boat leaving Venezuela, we're bombing it, right? If we know that there's dope on that boat, and I promise you, we're pretty good at this. If there's drugs on that boat, we're bombing it. And there are people on the left, right, who say this is awful. By the way, new statistic I found today, 62% of Americans have a positive view of Marxism. 60% of those, I'm making that up, couldn't tell you what Marxism was if their life depended on it. It's terrifying to me how uninformed most of the people out there are. Where has Marxism ever worked? Do we have anybody here that leans to the left? Could you tell me one place on planet Earth that Marxism has ever worked? Because I can go a step farther to say that it has been tried 1,000 times. I'm not making that up. You can actually research that. There's never been a successful implementation of Marxism anywhere. Now, the left will say to you, well, no, you know, the countries like Norway, we're not talking about Marxism. They're socialist, and people go, well, socialism is completely different. If you read the Communist Manifesto, socialism leads to Marxism. It is the introduction, because you can't just take over. You got to talk people into, hey, we're going to give you free health care. Hey, we're going to give you free this. Hey, we're going to give you free that. And that all sounds great until you realize that the people on the top, you're giving them a type of control like a fascist. They love that word, man. They throw that word around. Good to see you, bud. I have a positive view of Groucho, Chico, and especially Harpo. Yeah, what's your favorite movie, Barbara Waite? Mine is A Day at the Races, but I'm a huge fan of the Marx Brothers. Never stopped laughing. Too much isms. Well, here's the deal. Marxists do not believe in God. Marx called it the opioids of the masses. We're all dumb. We're just taking this so that, okay. They don't believe in family. You know what? If you don't believe in family or God, you scare the shit out of me. I don't mean you have to believe in both, but if you don't believe in either, I don't want you near me. I don't want you near me. Yeah, a father, a mother, and a kid is way worse, right, than a mother that lives in one place, a father that doesn't know his kid. How is this okay? Why does this make sense to people on the other side? And now people are going to reach out to me and say, that's not what we believe. And I'll send them a very nice email back. I don't call them ass hats, not in emails. I write back and say, I'd love to hear then what it is you do believe. I got an email back from somebody today. I was fascinated because most don't go back. And they were 4-word sentences. Stuff like, with Portland and troops, you know, it's fascist to send troops into a city. If the city has been overrun, you send troops in. We have laws that enable us to do this, right? That city's been over friggin' run. I watched a clip of film today of a woman that drove into the protest and just found herself in the wrong place. And she was weeping inside the car, terrified. That's not my effing country. Not the one I grew up in. And the people on the left are pumping their fist in the air and celebrating it and calling Trump a fascist. You know what? We'll really get demonetized. You know what would cure it? Those guys on the top of the buildings that are guarding it, fire about 60 rounds into that crowd. I'm not shitting around. What do you do when people burn your city to the ground? If they had guns in their hands, we'd roll tanks through. But because they're holding signs that says, hey, gay people have rights, we let them go and they're not an army. Well, that doesn't fly, man. That doesn't pass the smell test. It doesn't. But you know what it means? It means that half of the country, and way more than that, if we're being honest, have been cowed to the point that they will not say anything. If you only believe in an idea without a foundation, it's like building your home on quicksand. Boy, that sounds familiar. I feel like I read something very similar to that once. Well, you know something? Here's the thing. I know people that don't believe in God whose moral compasses are fantastic, right? I do. A lot of them. But when you start talking about a country, then there has to be a yardstick. Because I know a person who doesn't believe in God is a fantastic person. But the guy 2 doors down who gets to believe in whatever he wants is a Dolphin Queen King. And he believes that Antifa is a peaceful organization. Put a deuce in the chat if you remember watching cities burn while people on CNN stood in front of it saying, we're at a peaceful protest in Baltimore. The building is on fire behind you. There are people throwing Molotov cocktails. How is this a freaking peaceful protest? You know why? Because we have settled for newspeak. They've got us saying, because we're afraid to be called homophobes or racist, they've got us saying a man can give birth. 2 + 2 = 5, right? 1984. We have to call people they, them. They, them. I can't say she or he. I got to say they, them. Tell you what, sorry, I'm not calling anybody they, them. I'm not calling a pronoun you made up because you're an asshole. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. You really believe that these people were born and went, I'm a they, them. Does that make any sense to anybody? Tell me I'm wrong. How does that make any sense? Because it is rebellion against who's ever the norm. This is why there are roving bands of young women beating white men and women, elderly people to death, right? Because we're the enemy. They have been telling people for so long that the white male screwed up the entire planet. They also put men on the moon, right? Invented AI, did a lot of other things that seem to be moving in a decent direction. We've spent $30 trillion on social welfare programs. 30 trillion. I find that fascinating because we're 39 trillion in debt.
Those are the pronouns.
Oh, this is fun. Let's see what we got here. Let's do some pronoun stuff real quick, just in case I haven't been demonetized or lost any subs. Him, none. How about his, itself? Yeah, these are all legit, though. I thought you were going to be giving. Yeah, he, her, right? These are concepts that have been etched in stone for a very long time. I don't get how an individual, a single person, can be a they, them. Do they have multiple personalities? Well, it's an excellent question. And here's the answer to that. They're non-binary. They're a man and a woman. So they want to be called they. You know what? Pick a team. And if you want to call yourself they, them, knock yourself the hell out. But you come and tell me that I got to call you they, them, you better be tougher than me. And I got a good look at people fighting in Portland today. And I promise you, I would wade into that crowd and cause some serious freaking mayhem. Maybe they learned to fight in a different place, right? While getting estrogen shots. But we'd go prison rules if I got there. I promise you, there wouldn't be any freaking anything else. This is Barella on my wife's account, and my moral compass is based on my family not cheating on my wife and working my ass off so my daughter has a better life than I did when I was coming up. You know what? Does it matter what that man's faith is? If that is what his belief system is, to me, it doesn't. I have my beliefs, but I don't hate anybody for their beliefs unless those beliefs are based on something that is a fallacy. And I don't mean in terms of religion, because that's just based on faith. But we took science and converted it, completely blew it out of the water. Biology is a very simple subject. It really is. We talk about XX, YY, right? These are things that have been etched in stone. If you start researching through AI models, they'll say to you, this has already been determined, right? That biology no longer makes gender. Bullshit. 2 + 2 will always equal 4. If you want to live as a woman and you're a man, that's okay. But you can't force people to go, you're right, there's 72 genders. Because once you allow people to start dictating your belief, then we're in really, really trouble, man. As a Portuguese speaker, it gets weird to learn English with these pronouns. I have an easy solution for you. Don't. Because what you're being asked to do is bow a knee to an ideology that you don't believe in. And people are going to go, well, they're bowing a knee to an ideology that we don't believe in because these are Christian values. Well, they go back to the Magna Carta. All laws were based on something monotheistic. You know what, Fish? I love you, man. I really do. We don't have to agree. You can articulate your point. I love that. Articulate your point. I don't have to agree with you. We can be friends. Hey, Aska, good to see you. What I can't stand is people that say to me, you're an idiot. Your ideas are dumb. And I'll go, okay, explain to me why sending the military into Portland is a mistake. Because it's fascist. Okay, can you explain to me what a fascist is? Yeah. Solid. Can you explain to me what a fascist is? Of course not. Of course you can't. You can't articulate your own point, then I don't have a lot of respect for you. Maybe go back to the table, read about this stuff. But we have a bias now, and we have an echo chamber now that has become so hard-boiled into the things that happen on this planet. We can agree to disagree. Yeah, we can. I love to be able to agree to disagree. The problem is this. If I disagree with this, the amount of hate and derision I get, right? The amount of people, and they say, I'll get an email. You're being hateful right now. Yeah, I'm pissed. Oh, I know you do, Lise. I completely know you do. But I love the idea of being able to agree to disagree. I did it my entire life until they started persecuting people for doing it. The term cisgender male has never been said in a positive way since about the 4th week these idiots started. It's an insult, right? And these trans people who are so inclusive call women bleeders, breeders. This is disgusting stuff. But the beautiful thing is this. We have textbook examples of what happens if you let this run wild. We call it Portland, Oregon. Get a look at this model from Portland, Oregon, and see how it's running. The reason that you send troops into a city is to protect the innocent. Do you think the assholes in the street with the signs and the balaclavas are the innocent? Or do you think the 70-year-old woman who won't come out of her house and is paying all of the money she has to have her groceries delivered because she's terrified to put her keys in her car and drive outside? If you look at the news, they'll tell you everybody in Portland does not want the federal government coming in. But there are some YouTubers that don't give a shit about all the propaganda who are going out there with cameras and microphones and asking people what they think. And a lot of them are going, man, I grew up here. This place was fantastic. This was one of the best cities in the United States of America. It's absolutely gorgeous. I did time in Oregon, right? I never lived there as a free man, but I spent a decent amount of time in a prison in Oregon that was very laid back. It was a very easy place to do time. It was very low custody level. Spent a lot of time outside. The weather is beautiful. And the people from Portland that I met were fantastic people. Of course, they were prison guards and they were nurses and doctors. They weren't blue-haired people who were protesting in the street. If you send me an email and say what the government is doing is fascist, my response to you will be, well, when the George Floyd thing broke off, they took over a police station, right? And nobody got arrested for this garbage. Do the research and see how many people got prosecuted for what happened in Portland during the riots. And you know why they didn't get prosecuted? Because the governor agrees with them. And so does the mayor. That's a problem. That's a problem. Now, this is a free country. Those people were elected, right, by Portlanders. But you know how you really can screw up an election real quick? Decriminalize drugs and set tents up. They blew unbelievable amounts of money putting up tents for homeless people to move into. So if you're a junkie living 2 states over, what are you kidding me? I got free housing and you can't arrest me for my dope? What kind of immigration do you think you get? Huh? You get junkies. There are entire streets of abandoned cars and RVs and people who are living in them because they drove to that place because you can't be prosecuted for the drugs you're doing. What could possibly go wrong? Huh? What could possibly go wrong? This is going to be coming to cities all over the United States if we don't get a hold of it. I agree there are only 2 genders. Just because you want to play pretend doesn't mean that I have to pretend with you. Fish, I'm going to throw Johnny Scoville under the bus because he hasn't lost enough subs today. I was having this conversation with my brother and he said to me, every time I hear somebody say I identify as, I hear the word pretend in my head. And he said, I'm not trying to be a hater, but it's been this way since the very beginning. When a guy walks up and goes, hey, how you doing? I'm Karen. Yeah, miss me with that. I'm sorry. Honestly, miss me with that. I'm not calling you Karen. And do you know why? Not because I disrespect you. When I was in prison in Oregon, it's the only place I ever saw trans individuals. It's the only place that we ever saw weirdos was in that particular yard. And if somebody said, hey, my name is Ginger, I'll call the dude Ginger. It's not doing me any harm. It's not. But I'm in prison, right? I'm locked in a room, in a box with a bunch of people. And my job is to try to not get stabbed. So I don't know if, which gangbanger is banging Ginger. So you want to be called Ginger? I'll call you Ginger. When Ginger walks out of the room, I look at the guy next to me and go, Ginger, right? And everybody gets a laugh. Now, if you think that sounds disrespectful, here's the deal. Somebody explained to me the explosion of people who are identifying as other genders or making freaking genders up, right? there's a great article that you can read. I believe it was in National Geographic. And they were trying to explain how they got to, I think at that point we were at 32. I identify as a billionaire. That would be nice. You know what's really incredible? This is the first time in my life where if somebody said, you know, if we could give you $1 billion, I kid you not. I mean, I was the greediest man on planet Earth for a really long time. And it probably was because I went around the country as a public speaker pitching how great it was to be rich. Like that's kind of how that whole industry runs is you sell people on the dream of being rich. So you talk about it 2 hours a day. Anything you do, you're going to program. If I got $1 billion, I'd probably keep about 300 grand and I would give the rest of it away. I don't have a need for it. I really don't. I've become far more of a minimalist, which I never thought would have happened in my lifetime. Now, not completely. I'm not giving up my watch collection. I have a very, very large watch collection, and I'm not going to give that up. I love it. It's something that I take joy from. But there was a time, I mean, if you've been watching the show for any length of time, I had about 100 polo shirts, right? Everything I had a polo man on it. It seems really silly to me now. It really does. But a lot seems silly. You know, somebody said, why all the anger, right? Why all the anger? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Why all the anger? Well, let me start with this one. I had a trans child. The school didn't bother to tell the parents that there was that my child wanted to transition. My child would go to school, dress in different clothing after they got there and be called by a different name. And I'm not talking about Spanx Calhoun. I'm talking about my other child. And that child detransitioned and went back, and the hate that she got from the community that she literally built. Like she was the girl that said, we should have a club for this to support these people. And they damn near crucified her when she decided that wasn't who she was going to be. She didn't run away from them. She went to the next meeting. They said, you're not welcome here. Very, very kind people, right? It doesn't work well when a compact car tries to identify as a truck and tries to move a household of furniture across town. Yeah, I mean, look, I identify as kind until you start talking about things that are virtually ridiculous. I'm sorry, they're ridiculous. So biology no longer matters, right? No, because we're talking now, when we talk about gender, gender has nothing to do with biology. What? I'm sorry, what? How could gender and biology not be tied to one another? Well, because the people on the left have pushed that agenda so much that people are terrified. She's doing fantastic. She's flourishing. There are scars, right, that experience that are going to be with her forever. But she's also, and I don't talk like this to my kid. When my kid was living in another gender, I supported her. And not because I believed it for 2 seconds, but because I didn't want the world pulling her out of my life again. And if I had said, hey, you're not that gender, they would have gone into court and removed me from her life, right? That's what would have happened. I drove a Crown Vic and pulled up to a smart car in the gas station, said, you're braver than me. And he asked why. I asked, what happens if something like my car hits yours or a semi? Those, there was a big thing online for a while of people that would take those and turn them on their side or upside down. And I saw one once where I don't know how it happened. I'm sure it was a fraternity house because damn, seen some stuff for fraternity houses. Something about a cow, and I won't get into it. But fraternity houses do pranks like this. They put this on the roof of a building. So this person comes out in the morning to get their little smart car, and it's on a roof. That's a pretty good gig right there. That's a funny one. I like that. Yeah, they're terrifyingly small. I don't know if you remember the Izetta. That was the smallest car I've ever seen. BMW made it. It was, if you remember Steve Urkel, I think he drove one in that series. The Izetta is really, really small. 3 wheels, very economical on gas. And I don't think you'd want to run into a dog or, a curb in one of those. It's not big. So where are we at? Where are we at? Well, I'll tell you where we're at. Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and people said hate has just multiplied since then. No, logic has multiplied since then. Logic. People that were afraid to say, screw you, there's 2 genders, are now saying it. That's hate? It's not hate. There are 2 genders. You can live either one of those 2 genders if it makes you happy, but I ain't calling you a dolphin queen king, right? I'm not calling you My Little Pony, and we don't talk about this a lot on the channel. No, here's the thing on this. We're about the same age. How many times has our government shut down in our life? Because I can remember half a dozen minimum. And they tell us every time, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. It never happens. Never happens. None of it. So there'll be some government workers who don't go to work. I was in prison the last time the government shut down. And all the inmates were like, the guards aren't coming in tomorrow to feed us, man. At midnight, they're not paying anybody else. The guards showed up the next day, right? Everything continues. And I promise you there's going to be a continuing resolution that both sides will eventually agree on. And we'll go back to spending $6 million a minute that we don't have. We're good at it. Don't trip. I agree with you. It's definitely happening this time due to Trump, right? Because he's starting to come up with these radical ideas like when they did the Doge thing and we found out that we're giving money to a country that literally doesn't exist. Those kind of things where you start going, what? Like, there isn't really a country by this name, but we've given how much money to them? The waste and the fraud in the United States government. Do you know that they've never done an audit on the Pentagon? That's our largest budget. Can you imagine if you didn't balance your checkbook ever? And 60 years later, you were like, maybe we'll go see how much cash we got in there. We have allowed, Schumer is demanding $1.5 trillion in the next 4 months or weeks, next 4 weeks. Yeah, no problem there. Yeah, no, they've never audited the Pentagon. Look it up. Tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so would I. Yeah, Chuck Schumer. I'm not kidding you. I'd kiss a cop on the mouth to spend 5 minutes in a locked room with Chuck Schumer. The disingenuousness. These are the same people that come out and will literally, they're politicians that will come out and say, we have a convicted rapist in the White House. That's a lie. That's a lie. And if you're a politician that can come out and lie to people once after another, you shouldn't be in office. Ilhan Omar hates the United States of America and says it out loud. Hates the United States of America, married her brother to get citizenship. Why is she in office? The governor of Oregon doesn't want to bring anybody in to fix this because as far as she's concerned, it's perfect. Yeah, well, the people that live there don't think it's perfect. The freaks do. And yeah, I call them freaks. Go watch the videos and tell me they're anything other than that. If what you're doing is a peaceful protest, why do you need a balaclava to hide your face? Huh? If I see one more person get up in the face of a cop and start spitting at him, I spent 13 years in prison. Do you think I like cops? I mean, as a rule of thumb, these aren't people I root for. But when I see a guy that's just trying to do his job and there are people up there in their face calling him fascists and pigs and cursing at him, spit flying, I'm sorry. God forgive me. I told you I'm not Charlie Kirk. I'm rooting for an empty magazine. Feel me? And maybe a reload. I'm sorry. How do you stop insanity? You show up and you say, this is going to stop right now. And they keep coming back and they're pushing back and they're pushing back. You know what? Sometimes the tree of life, you like my hat? Thank you. Sometimes the tree of freedom gets watered with blood. It's not a good thing. It isn't. But this is an attack on our country. Look up what Antifa stands for. They would like to overthrow the United States government, and they call us fascists. They want to overthrow the United States government. That's a terrorist organization by definition, right? It's called sedition. They kill people for that. And the governor and the mayor of that fine city say, this is home. This is paradise. This is paradise. People shitting in the streets, needles all over the place, and folks afraid to leave their house. They have closed schools down because they're too afraid to have kids. And I don't mean we're not going to school for 2 weeks. I mean, this school isn't doing school anymore. Yeah, no, Trump shouldn't send any troops there.
So he says, is it rude to say that I'm glad you and John are not in the U.S. anymore?
No, it's not rude. No, my mother says that all the time. Every time I talk to my mother, she says, yeah, when are you coming back to visit? I said, I don't know. I might come back for Christmas. She said, don't. And she's not saying that because she doesn't love us or she doesn't want us there, but she's never been happier realizing that there's nobody trying to terrorize us. And by that, I mean, there are still people trying to terrorize us. There are people calling down here to tell them that we're, just pick your favorite insult. Here's the good news. It's not going to do a thing. This country doesn't play the games that the United States plays, right? They're going to hang up and say, stop calling this number. That's what they're going to do. Or they're going to appease them and go, yeah, we'll go get them. They're not coming to get us. We filled out paperwork. I'm not here illegally. I didn't sneak across this border, right? I flew in and came through customs. That's how you're supposed to do it. I'm not sure if you know that. I mean, you can walk across, but you got to go through customs. You got to get what they call a temporary visa. And then you have to apply for a permanent visa. And in order to do that, you have to show them what you've done over the course of your entire life. And the beautiful thing is here that they say, we want to see if you've done something wrong in the past, and I obviously have, they want to see that there has been rehabilitation. And in spite of what a lot of people think and maybe how I sound, I have rehabilitated. The Biden administration, I believe, has done more damage than can even be calculated. But he didn't start it. Learn our history. Oh, no, he didn't start it. He didn't start it at all. The problem is a lot of the stuff that we did in the past, just like giving kids estrogen to turn them into a girl, or giving boys estrogen to turn them into a girl, and women testosterone. It's going to be 50 years before we know what that does, right? So there are mistakes that we make that sometimes take time for us to figure out. By the time Biden came into office, he knew that if he said open borders, that hundreds of thousands of kids were going to disappear into the United States. And what do you think they do with them? Do you think they put them in daycare? Because I'll tell you what they do with them. They sell them. And I don't mean you want to buy a kid and take it home and take good care of it and love it. No, I mean they sell them again and again and again to freaks until the child either gets too old or starts to go insane from all the abuse, and then they'll kill it. This is humane, right? And the people on the left will go, what you're doing is so inhumane. Oh yeah, you guys nailed it. You guys nailed it. No, I'll tell you something. The deficit spending on both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats destroyed this country. I can't stand either of them. I can't. However, one of them believes that we should probably get out of people's lives and allow free speech, right? Smaller government and free speech. The Democrats do not believe in free speech. And I'm not making this up. You can go look up how many Democrats have said the First Amendment is becoming an issue. Oh, baby. When they start saying the First Amendment is becoming an issue, we're in deep trouble. Jimmy Kimmel lost 64% of his audience in 48 hours. Why is he on the air? Why would you keep him on losing your ass? Because you have a vested interest in keeping him on talking about how bad Trump is, because a lot of people get their news from late night TV. Sandy, that's a kind thing to say. You know what? I try to crack jokes. I try to kind of keep it light, but I would like people to think about this. Because if you're a person who goes, it's so wrong that they're sending the military in, move to Portland. Get a house on the same street where these jackasses are protesting, and they haven't left for 100 days. Got any idea how many of them are defecating in the street? I mean, that's disgusting, right? That's just not right. If you were to just drive through Portland, you would say, this is not America. Now, it's not unique to Portland. Kensington, right? The Kensington area of Philadelphia is another place where you look and go, this can't be America. It can't be. Start looking at these centers of absolute horror, and they have a lot in common. And one of them is they tend not to be Republican-run states, right? So this social experiment of saying whatever goes for you is good. You're not a pedophile. You're a minor attracted person. We don't want to step on anyone's feelings, because if you were born wanting to have sex with a 4-year-old, you can't control that. We'll call you a minor attracted person. Oh, you were born wanting to have sex with dogs? That's not bestiality anymore, right? You're a zoophile. Man, miss me with all of that shit. What the hell is wrong with us as a society, right? There are people out literally arguing that you cannot condemn somebody for their sexual preference, even if it's deviant. I think you can kill them for it. That's my humble opinion. Because if you're having sex with a kid, it's attempted murder of a soul. That's what it is. I'm sorry, but that's it. Very interesting thing came out about the Biden administration today. Do you know that every time he went on stage and they found all of these pictures that they've been able to enhance of his cheat sheets? There's nothing wrong with a cheat sheet. You know, if you're a public speaker that has to go out, what I do is a lot of opinion, and I sprinkle some statistics and some facts through. But if you're running for president or doing something like that, you have to be able to spit them out. And he was an older guy. You wouldn't think that on the cheat sheet, it would have to have the name of Hillary Clinton with a picture next to it and her bio, or any of the other people. These are people that this man knew so well, but literally had to have people. Cindy G, if they're successful, then it is here's the thing. The reason that I say attempted murder of the soul is because I know a lot of people that have survived being sexually assaulted. I have. And I certainly have a very damaged part of me because of it. However, my soul is thriving, right? My soul is doing well. I'm a survivor. And I know that there are a lot of other people who are survivors as well. Oh, and by the way, women do rape men. I know that that's a concept that most people can't wrap their brain around, but it happened to me. And obviously they don't do it to full grown men, but they do it to kids, and it happens. And it's the same damage. The only difference is that if you tell people about it, they go, "Oh, good job," which doesn't happen to too many women who survive that, right? We realize that it's heinous if it happens to a woman. And if it happens to a boy, we go, "Good for you, man. How about that?" Last pick, I saw Biden. He had a big scar on his head, I think from removing some skin cancer. He's fighting cancer right now. And you know what? I don't celebrate that, right? The left would. If Trump gets cancer, wait until you see how many people start celebrating and partying. What's wrong with your souls? If you're capable of that, what's wrong with your souls? They're not going to hear that. They're not going to hear any of it. They certainly won't sit through 1 hour of anything. You know why our birth rates are low? Keep it real. Because the vast majority of guys that ought to be out having sex with women are sitting in mom's basement, rubbing it out to porn all day long and then playing video games. We have an entire army of man children that never grew up, right? That have been having things handed to them. This morning, every time I used to watch so much true crime that my feed is always going to have true crime in it. And I watched a thing this morning, and the thumbnail said, "Woman completely loses it after traffic stop." I watched a woman say she got out of the car. She drove down the street in a mobile home. She was pulling behind the car, and it had an awning out. She whacked the side of the gas tanks at a gas station. And when they pulled over and said, "Hey, can I have your ID?" She said, "This is an illegal stop. I have," and she listed off 19 things that were wrong with her. "I have PTSD." And the guy said, I'm not trying to scare you. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. We have become a snowflake society that I would like to just slap the hell out of every one of. You know what? Grow a set. Start acting like men and women. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir, because even if you do not agree with what I say, the rugged individualism on either side lasted for a long time, but it's dead now. It's dead. You'll never meet a kid that doesn't tell you 9 ailments they have. Right? And I don't mean 4 and 5-year-olds, but I mean, you meet an 18, 19, 20-year-old, they'll say, "I have PTSD. From what? Honestly, from what do you have PTSD? Right? Because society is so hard. When Trump ran for office the first time and we watched the snowflakes melting down, "I swear to God, my life is over." Man, get it together. But we didn't say that. We didn't go, "Hey, grow up." We went, "It's okay. We've built a room for safe spaces. They have teddy bears in there. We also have Play-Doh." Are you kidding? Are you kidding? It's expensive to raise a child, but well worth it. Yeah, it is. Too many low T men. Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to that. And then the other thing is this. We have a war on men. Have you ever heard someone say a woman is toxically feminine? Put a 2 in the chat if you've ever heard someone call somebody toxically feminine. Because I promise you, I'll prove to you that there are toxic feminine women right now. There's no problem proving that. No problem at all. People who write books that say that we need to get control of young boys. No, we don't. No, we don't. That's how we get these guys jerking off in their basements, living in mom's house, right? That don't go to work, that don't do anything, because what is that? Toxic masculinity is a concept in a book that was written, several books written, but it is a concept that says that testosterone and men with a lot of it are dangerous to society, and that most of the ills on planet Earth come from toxically masculine men. Like football players, that's toxic masculinity. The UFC fighting, that's toxic masculinity. Men today have 50% less testosterone than their great grandfathers. That's because they don't work. We stopped celebrating guys that came home with dirty hands. They built the country, but we pick on people who have jobs like plumbers or carpenters. The tradespeople are the people that built this country, keep this country alive. But instead, we will venerate somebody that has a degree in lesbian African, poetry studies. It's remarkable to me how far we have gotten off of the logical path. I'm just talking about logical. Some of my older children have no desire to grow a family in this current environment. It breaks my heart, but I understand where they're coming from. You know, I do too. I understand why someone wouldn't want to bring a child into this world. I really do, especially because we don't ever hear good news. They don't ever tell us good news. Every single thing on television just talks about how bad it is. What can you do with a degree in those? Well, it doesn't really matter what your degree is. If you're not an engineer, if you're not a doctor, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not a scientist, if you're not going into one of the fields that require that kind of education, a lot of people end up getting a job that doesn't require a college education. So that's great. You went to school and got indoctrinated in one leaning point of view. And if you think I'm making that up, do a little research. I'm a welder, and you're wrong, dude. That toxic should be replaced with the truth. Explain to me what that means. I don't understand what you're saying. Toxic masculinity. Yeah, I would like to understand what you're saying. Welding is a good profession. It's a great profession, and without it, we'd be screwed, right? Look at all of the things on this planet that require being welded, right? We'd be in serious trouble without welding. And even if you are, you still have to waste your time in classes about water. There is a great quote by Jordan Peterson, right? And if you don't like Jordan Peterson, you probably don't like me either. But he had a quote that says, you know what? Men are supposed to be dangerous. We're not supposed to be mellow. We're supposed to be dangerous. A good man is a dangerous man that keeps it under control, right? As a woman, put a 2 in the chat if you would be really happy if your guy was ready to kick the crap out of somebody that came at you in a way that you didn't respect. I may live my life as a soft soul, but that does not mean that anyone should think that I don't have the brains and the desire to stand up. I just won't crap on anyone's ideas. Is that what I'm doing, just Joan, out of curiosity? Am I crapping on anyone's ideas? Because here's my thought on this. And I respect the sentiment. And even if you do believe that I'm crapping, I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm crapping on stupidity. You can't say every idea is legit and we're never going to call people on it. Because if you do, then where do we draw that line? And you go, well, Tommy, it's not going to get, we're calling people dolphin queen kings, non-binary dolphin queen kings. I watched a video that blew my mind. It was showing a woke place that, oh yeah, no. So yeah, we agree. Yeah, it should be called truth. Yeah, it's not toxic masculinity. Now I get where you're going. Thanks. Yeah, it's guys are supposed to be masculine, right? It was a better world when we were masculine. It was a better world. But they have a vested interest in making us less testosterone. Do you know that fluoride, the first people to put fluoride in water were the Nazis? Research it. Do you know why? Because it makes men docile. And a docile group of people are easier to control. And the DEI and all of this crap is about control. So you grew up in the 80s, you grew up in the 70s. Did you know a bunch of people that wanted to be a different gender? Because what they tell us is all of those people, there were tons of them, but we were all so cruel to them that they just lived that way. Now that we're celebrating it and allowing that to come out, that's why we're seeing such huge numbers. They've always been there. It's just now we're not haters anymore. I love you, Tommy, but sometimes you generalize and group people and situations, all left or all right. I am me. I am not part of the all. I would admit it if I was. Well, I'm not calling you anything, just Joan. What I'm saying is this. There is logic in critical thinking that we have suspended. Do you understand? Do you get it? Because here's what I'm saying. Portland, Oregon is overrun right now. Watch the videos. They're all over YouTube. Tell me who's protesting. They've been doing it since the George Floyd riots. If you look at how many, and I'm not calling it the Black Lives Matter crap anymore. I'm not. That's a terrorist organization, in my opinion, as well. I love black people. What did they do for them? For real, what did they do for them? They stole a ton of money and bought some really nice property. I grew up when you did something, you definitely didn't want your father to learn about what you had done. Yeah, you know, I'm not going to sit on my hands. I believe wanting to change your gender is a big move. I don't know what percentage change back, but I think it's significant. How about this? Look at the suicide rates among people that go through this process. And I don't mean cutting your junk off. I just mean going through the process of trying to live in a different gender. And they go, well, it's because society puts so much pressure on these things. Well, it's going to be 50 years before we find out if it's that you've been playing with their hormones so much that we're in trouble. They'll admit that. We're 50 years away from knowing that. So we're experimenting on our kids, right? That's what we're doing. That doesn't pass the smell test to me. That doesn't pass the smell test. You can't even give cancer drugs to people that are dying of cancer because it's inhumane to experiment on humans. But they'll admit, we have no idea what this is going to do for the next 50 years. The ones that won't admit that will say, we've been doing this since the 1970s. No, we have not. Sure, we've given estrogen to boys and we've given testosterone to women, but we have not been doing what we're doing now, right? That's not what's happening. It just simply isn't. Both of my grandfathers were hardworking farmers. Farmers are unbelievable people. Of course, we're selling all of our farmland to China. What could go wrong, right? You would be shocked how much of our farmland is now owned by the Chinese.
What the Chinese don't know, Bill Gates does.
Now that they're talking DEI, now that they're taking DEI out of the military and rolling back the standards, I'm not sure the U.S. can fill the ranks. Barbara Ray, I'm going to agree to disagree with you on this one. I think that what you're saying makes sense, but the reason that that isn't going to happen is because we were showing videos, right? Recruitment videos that showed trans soldiers. Show that to the boys who have testosterone, because those are the boys that want to go into the military and they go, yeah, I'm good. Show the videos like Top Gun, get the director of Top Gun and have him make videos, right? So that they can show those to guys who have a ton of testosterone and are willing to fight for their country. And what you'll get are men that want to fight, men that want to defend their country. In fact, we are seeing the first spike that we've had in people joining the military in forever. You can thank Hegseth for that, whether you like him or not. I would never want to sit on your hand. I believe in your vision and mission. I don't always agree with you. And you don't have to. You don't have to at all. Where we're running into problems is there are people all over the United States that are saying, there's nothing wrong with Portland. There's nothing wrong with Portland. Please watch the videos. I'm not pulling stuff up on here and doing all that. I don't have any talent, right? But it'll take you 30 seconds to research it. Go see what's going on and watch what's happening in Portland. I'm not saying they should keep the standards low. I'm saying we don't have enough physical fit people. I know, I agree with you. I know exactly what you're saying. But the problem is that we have been going after the wrong people. If you advertise to trans individuals and they join the military, that's not a good thing. I promise you it's not. I promise you it's not. There is wrong in every state in the country. You're right. Are any of them trying to overthrow the government? Because if you watch what's happening in Portland, you're not going to come away with anything other than, and read what Antifa stands for, right? Anti-fascist. Miss me with that shit. They don't know what the word fascist means. Fascist governments have central control. There wouldn't be a Congress. There wouldn't be a House of Representatives, right? That would all be gone. There wouldn't be a judiciary branch. It is one person who has complete authoritative rule over everything. First thing you do is shut down free speech. Get rid of all the guns. Yeah, you're not going to really take the Trump, whether you like him or hate him, he sure as hell is not a fascist. And if you think he is, go look up the definition. Read what the 10 tenets of fascism is. You did it?
I told you.
Yeah, I mean, we're losing it. We're losing it, and it's sad. And Just Joan, I love you. And I hope none of you agree with me all the time. But the stupidity, here's the problem. The problem becomes when someone says something like, well, I would never step on anyone's feelings. If your feelings is that it's okay to put kids in an oven, would you step on their feelings? If you said it's okay to molest children as long as they're over the age of 7, would you say, I'm not going to step on that person's feelings? Right?
Yeah.
No, there's no way that you would do that. So the question then becomes, where is that moral line drawn? For me, it's pretty clear because I use a yardstick that is based on a monotheistic approach. I believe in Jesus, and it's pretty easy to take these things and go back to the Bible, right? You don't have to do that, but you have to have your own yardstick. And as a country, you better have a yardstick, because here's what we've said. You do what you do, because no one's going to step on anyone else's beliefs. If your beliefs are evil or rooted in something that is going to destroy the country, then we're in trouble. I live in Washington. Portland is and has always been a place where they wanted to be seen a different. I'm quite lovable. No reason for you not to love me just because we disagree. Exactly. And I'll tell you what, I was a public speaker and I probably went to Portland 3 times a year, and it was one of my favorite cities to go to. But they would kill me if I walked in there now, right? Or they would give it a try. It would take most of them. I'm telling you, ain't enough testosterone in there for any of them to fight. I don't think it's going to take the military long to run them out if they actually try. When we look at places that we have allowed Democrats to run for very long periods of time, statistically speaking, they're not doing as well as the places that we've allowed the Republicans to do for long periods of time. We'll come back tomorrow and you can do a little research on that and tell me if I'm wrong. Anyone, I'd be looking forward to that. The reason that this is important to me and the reason that I have to do this is because when they took out Charlie Kirk, the greatest thing happened that they possibly wished didn't. Charlie Kirk had one channel. Now people all over the place are talking about what he believed because we've all grown a pair. All of the people that have been told that we are racist and homophobic and haters and this and that go, no, we're the majority. The majority of people don't believe that it's okay to take over a police station and live in it for 100 days, right? That's not civil. And Portland might want to be different, but they're making the people who don't agree with that terrorized. When that happens, pull out the M16s. That's your job. Your job is to protect the citizens of this country. And if you have to protect them from your own citizens, then you need to do that. And Antifa is running Portland. The mayor's cool with it. The governor's cool with it. Time to send in the bullets. You can hate me for that. I'm sure as shit demonetized for it. Between now and the next time I see you, put a little smile on your face. And you know what? A little spine steel, right? Don't let people tell you that you're wrong because is anyone talking about the killing at the Mormon church? That's a real question, not a smart ass thing. Yeah, here's the thing. It's kind of a gray area because it appears that this is not an ideological thing. He hated the Mormon church and they don't like talking about it if it doesn't make one side or the other bad. And I'm saying both sides, right? Fox News would love to say that this person is a leftist piece of crap. CNN would love to say that they're a right winger. But if you read the articles, because I read them, I don't watch it, and they say, the gentleman had a deer head on his car and 2 American flags flying in a gun rack. That's their way of saying this dude was a Republican. They don't want to get caught saying that because they don't actually know yet. But they figure he was in the military. When have we ever lived in our lifetime where being in the military makes you a bad person? You can look up. Do you know that they say math is racist? Do you know that they say the United States flag is racist? Go look that up and see if I'm lying. When math becomes racist, then we are talking about lunatics. This whole audience and everyone in earshot needs to look up Anthony Sutton and Bolsheviks in Wall Street. Well played. Actually, that would be a really great idea. And while you're at it, look up a cat named Milton Friedman and see what he said about what happens. Anyway, I literally ran about 18 minutes long. Myronosaurus, you made my day. You really did. And it takes guts right now. Right? I can do this, but it takes guts to say the things that you say because there are going to be people that are going to shit on you for it. And that's sad, but it's the truth. And that, folks, is a cat that ought to be in a basket. Where is she? There she is. Squirrel nut zipper. Okay. You know what? The super chat covered it. And she gave me a look like, how dare you film me? I will be back tomorrow night, probably about 30 or 40 subscribers light. Between now and then, do not lose hope, right? I predicted this for 2 years. Go back and watch my videos. I said, keep pulling that bowstring and watch what happens when you piss off enough of the Americans who are keeping their mouths shut. I've been predicting this for years. This needed to happen. It's a course correction. There are going to be bumps, but when it is over, it's going to be beautiful. See you on the next.